Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Mrs. Nesbit.
Do you see the hat? I think you've had about enough tea. Dude, fucking, yeah, you should have remembered that. Yeah. My wife just walked in to get her book that she left on the coffee table in front of me.
Yeah. That's deep cut for those Toy Story fans out there.
I know, man. Dude, you know what's crazy? I would love to see Disney make a Mrs. Nesbit version of Buzz Lightyear.
That'd be fine.
I think that would be really, and it specifically has to say on the box, Mrs. Nesbit.
Yeah.
They'll never do it.
Cowards.
Yeah. But dude, that would be so much. I mean, that whole movie is great. Future episode. But I think that's one of the funniest moments of Buzz just fully having lost his will to live.
Yeah.
Becoming Mrs. Nesbit. And Tim Allen does it so well.
Yeah.
Do you see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit. What a great way to open this episode. Welcome back, everyone. That's another reason why I was wearing my Spice Girls shirt. So if you're watching this, you get to see Spice Girls on my shirt. Because I was kind of trying to lighten up a little bit because it's about to get serious, which we'll get to in just a second. But I wanted to bring this up on camera. We were talking about it off mic. But my wife and I over the weekend, we took in a stage play. Yeah, we took it. We like proper adults, with our opera glasses, took in a stage play. But no, we. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on mic. I really love plays. I truly do. And Ashley and I have never actually seen one together. And the local theater here in Midland, which they were putting on a production of Puffs, which is a non-licensed by Warner Brothers, especially not J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter play, primarily of what the Hufflepuffs were doing in the background of the events of all of Harry Potter's adventures, and it's just really funny. It does get pretty serious, like holy shit, but it is, I would say 90% really funny. Because like the main character is this guy named Wayne Hopkins, who comes from British parents, but is raised by his uncle in New Mexico. And so he doesn't have a British accent. And it was hysterical. I wasn't expecting an intermission, but they had one. Well, this is something I learned on the actual Puffs like official website. If you want to license the play and put it on, you can license either the 1-act play, which I guess is a condensed version, or the 2-act play, which is what MCT did, is the 2-act play. But it was great, man. It had been such a long time since I've seen a stage show. I want to say the last one I saw it at Midland Community Theater was, I think, a production of Cats. No. Yes. No. It's either production of Cats or The Producers. Which whoever they got to play Max Bialystock, I told Ashley this will stay with me forever. As you know, hang on everyone. As you know, there's a part in one of the final songs that Max sings where he's recapping everything that has happened up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the stage, he's doing the song, and then the actor yells out, "Intermission!" And then he sits down and kind of talks to the audience, is like, "Everyone having a good time?" Okay, good. And then he gets back into it. Yeah. But yeah, I guess the short of this is support your local theater and go see a stage show. Yeah. Yeah, man. When was the last time you saw a stage show?
Oh, it wasn't that long ago. Haley and I went a few times before we moved. I don't remember what the last show we saw was, but um, yeah. So I guess 3 years ago.
That's
I don't remember what we saw. Wasn't bad. I'm sure I knew someone there. What'd you say, hon? The the Taffetas? Was it good? Do you remember? We don't remember.
well. I mean, that's definitely sooner than I want to say. It's probably been a cool 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So this was, yeah. Um, but yeah. Well, that being said, I guess we should just get into this. Um, Jeremy, what are we talking about today?
Okay. Today we are discussing the 2010 um, Denis Villeneuve adaptation of Incendies, um, which means, well, in the stage play, it means scorched.
Mm-hmm.
But here it translates better to fires or flames.
You know, I also kind of tied it to this because, yeah, before I started the movie, I didn't want any other information, but I did see that it was an adaptation. And I was like, okay, of what? And I saw that it was a stage show, so I kind of tied it all together.
Well, yeah.
So okay, so I want to say you mentioned this movie to me once before.
It was a year ago, yeah.
Had you already seen it by that point,
No,
or
that was the first time I had seen it. It was a year ago.
oh, okay,
I Haley was out of town or something. I was home alone, and I was trying to figure out something to watch, and I was feeling adventurous, and I had it on my shelf for years. And I go, you know what? I love Denis Villeneuve. I love, every film I've ever seen of his. And I just recently watched Polytechnic, which was one of his first films. And this one was, I believe, the follow-up to Polytechnic. And I was like, let's give it a shot. And as I'm watching it, I'm enjoying it. It's very, stressful, and it's you know, um, devastating and full of sorrow, and there's this underlying mystery to it, and of course, once we get to the end, and I was completely floored. My jaw was on the floor. I out loud, I was like, no, no way, no way, right? Because you just don't expect it, right?
yeah,
I had a little bit of like a lizard brain inkling that maybe, but I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense, because then we get that flash, then we get that scene um, of him, as a sniper, and he's still a kid. So I was like, okay, so that's not it. You know what I mean? That can't be right.
yeah,
And they wouldn't do that. And then it ends up being the case, and again, you're just, I mean, I don't know how you were, but I was simultaneously horrified, um, just haunted, mystified, and excited. I couldn't believe that they pulled off this mystery and this twist, in an elegant, sophisticated way, because it's not at all for shock value, and it's not at all, it's not pulling the rug out from under you. It seems organic, and grounded and true to the story that they're telling, which is very impressive.
yeah. I mean, as I told you today, this is like Greek level tragedy.
Yeah.
You know, um, and I told Ashley after the movie was over, and like I explained it to her because she was playing a game on her laptop, so I had my headphones on while I was watching, so she wasn't hearing anything. Um, and I was telling her about it once it was over, and she was like, "This sounds like a lovely film." I'm like, "Well, subject matter aside, it's really good. Like it's so devastating. The mystery element is, it really keeps you on the edge of your seat, and the flashbacks are so
Yeah.
visceral and so, grounded. I know we talk about that a lot when we do films like this, but this truly felt, I would say one of the most grounded films we've done. Um, I mean, we've done a ton, but definitely this is a part of that. Well, I think we've done enough hyping up. So, Jeremy, what remind everyone,
Yeah.
Zach, what this movie is about?
Zach doesn't need reminding. He rewatched it the day before I did. And he watched it, I think, the night I texted him about it. So, like a year ago. I texted him, I said, "You're not going to believe this movie. I just finished it. My jaw's on the floor. Like, I am blown away by this." And he goes, "Okay." And the next day he texted, goes, "I watched it last night." It's like 1 a.m. And he goes, "Yeah, I mean, you're speechless." So here's everyone's warning. So major spoiler ahead. I wouldn't we've already done a disservice by even hinting at a twist, but you can stream this on Tubi right now for free, or you can rent it on Apple TV or Amazon Prime or whatever, or buy a disc for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, Incendies is a story of these twins whose mother has passed away due to a sudden stroke. They meet with her boss, which is also a notary, which I guess in French Canada is somewhat of a lawyer of some kind.
Mhm.
And she was his secretary for many years, and so they know him very well. And he is laying out the will, the last will and testament. And as he's reading it, it's very strange and it's very odd, because not only is she requesting that she be buried without a casket, without clothes, and laying face down, but she doesn't want there to be a funeral, a wake, a headstone. She said, however, though, in the will, there are 2 letters for my daughter. If you go find your father and give him this letter, and for my son, if you will take this letter and give it to your brother, then you can erect a headstone and have my name on it and have the proper funeral services that you think I deserve, right? And they're confused because they thought their father was dead, and they have no idea what she's talking about a brother. And so already they're frustrated and confused and hurt. They feel like they've been lied to. And the brother Simone wants nothing to do with it. So he's sort of like, for his sister Jeanne, if you want to go, you go, but I'm staying because this is ridiculous. I don't want any. And so she travels to a nondescript Middle Eastern country. The movie does not specify what country they are in. And she starts to get to work on how she can possibly find this person. And as she does, where do you start but the beginning, right? And so as she's asking all of these people and finding, out more and more about her mother, we are getting these flashbacks. Nawal, their mother, fell in love with a Muslim refugee. Her herself being Christian, this was obviously very taboo. Her family kills this man, and she confesses that she's pregnant. After she has the baby, they mark the baby with tattoos, 3 dots on his ankle, and they said, "You'll find him one day, but you cannot keep it." And so they They send him to an orphanage. And she vows to spend the rest of her life trying to find her son. And so, as she's growing up, there's more political and religious unrest within the country, Muslims and Christians. She again has a very a hatred towards the Christian nationalists because they're the ones that radicalized her family into murdering the man she fell in love with, right? And so, once the war starts to get pretty bad, she joins the Muslim, I guess you would say, like the Muslim rebellion, and she ends up assassinating a head political figure of the Christian nationalists. Goes to prison for 15 years, and while she's there, she is subjected to torture, not only physically but also a sexual torture, and she ends up becoming pregnant by her torturer. As it turns out, those are the twins that she has in prison, and this is when Simone starts to join in and decides that fine, I will come, I will help. Originally, he's there just to bring Jean back to Canada, but she insists they need to finish this. That way, they can bury their mother the way they need to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now Simone is now trying to find this mystery brother, right? Who they still believe was the one who was born in prison. Again, this is yada yadaing through a lot.
Yeah.
And also, like perspective, because, like we're ahead of the characters in a lot of ways, which works in its favor. We'll talk about that. So, Simone has a few contacts through the notary and through, locals of the country. And they get in touch with this warlord. And the warlord knew their mom personally and told them this story of how, whenever his mother's family gave that child up gave it up for an orphanage, he told the story of how that orphanage was overtaken, how the children were taken, how they were radicalized and militarized by him, and how they trained them. They were now soldiers. They fought for their side. And eventually, their brother got very, very good at this. He was an excellent marksman. He was a fighter. He was ruthless and brutal. And by the time the opposition caught up with them and captured him, he had already killed 7 of their men. And so they, instead of killing him, brainwashed him and turned him to their side, the Christian nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought, he is so ruthless and so brutal that we can put him in this prison to be a torturer. And that's what he'll specialize in, and that way we can use his talents to our benefit. He ended up being Nawal's torturer. He ended up impregnating Nawal, having the twins. Therefore, 1 + 1 is 1, and their brother is their father.
Yeah.
And he has been living in their town in Canada this entire time. Turns out the mother recognized him when they were out at the public pool. She had a stroke, and that's what caused her health decline. They go back to Canada. They track him down. They hand him the letters. They leave. They get to put up the tombstone. They get to put her name on it. And the movie ends with this man who is both her child and her torturer and her rapist, is standing in front of her headstone. The movie ends. And that's basically awesome.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, I wasn't seeing that coming at all.
Yeah.
We're just gonna go right into the reveal. I I thought I thought it was gonna be revealed that he didn't make it through the war, or you know, or something. But just like you, I started to have this inkling, especially when Simon meets the warlord.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, he didn't work with your father. I was like, but that can't
Right.
that can't be,
Yeah.
And then of course we get the flashback of how Narwhal puts it all together. Um, and dude, I was like, holy Jesus. Like,
Yeah. If you were to watch the movie again, and the scene in the beginning where they're at the pool, he's in the background, like he's there.
oh.
Yeah, talking to those men by those chairs. I made sure to look this time, and it turns out, sure enough, he's right there. So this isn't sort of like we're going to put him there, for these reveal scenes. He's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lesser filmmaker would have been like, oh, actually, he was there the whole time.
Right. No, I mean, he's there. He's in the background. And it's just expertly done. Now, yeah. So, I think where this film really, I mean, the movie begins with, let me see if I can get his name correct. Because he had, hang on, I am so sorry. Nahad? I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. Nahad of May, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting his head shaved, right, in the very beginning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Holy shit.
He's staring into the camera. We see the tattoo. And by the way, the use of Radiohead, I mean,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I saw an interview today with Denis Villeneuve where he's talking about the movie, and he said that he wanted to give you the notion that I'm just gonna lie to you from the beginning, because this isn't, how the film starts is it's misleading. And not only is it misleading, but I'm not going to put you in the right context. We're playing Radiohead because it's not culturally accurate. It's not historically accurate to the time either. I'm going to mislead you because this story is from the perspective of two Westerners who are not from this country, that have no context of this country and or of the time either.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that explanation. And my daughter's not feeling well. She's over here. Our producer. So I love it, right? I love the idea of just going straight in with, contradictory information and contradictory, these with these themes and with the music and with the way he's shooting it. I love that that zoom in on him too. And
I agree.
Yeah, and then we just jump into the story, and I really like the juxtaposition between these two worlds of Canada and then this Middle Eastern country. And it's really just a juxtaposition of this life that Nawal lived. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look at her, and her kids are so shocked that this was her life beforehand.
Yeah.
Her first half of her life seems like someone's entire life. That's just so much happens, and she was so integral to the revolution of the Muslim refugees in this country, and they had no idea, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind of it kind of reminded me a little bit of, and maybe this isn't the best comparison, and or maybe you might agree. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Bob Gale's inspiration for um, Back to the Future, seeing this old photo of his dad, and wondering what he was like back then.
Yeah.
And I that was something about the story I really liked, which is, these twins are learning things about their parents, and it's kind of like, do we all really know our parents? These lives that they had before they had kids, or before, something dramatic changed in their life. And I really like that, because, we get to see Narwhal as more than just a mom. Now, granted, she does spend all the story sort of as a mom, searching for uh, Nihan. But, we get to see her as sort of a revolutionary and a journalist, and, these things that Simon and Jeanine wouldn't even consider that she would be a part of this.
No, and I think that, it was kept from them on purpose. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want them to know of the violence that she witnessed and that she was a part of. She wants to. The entire film is her ending this cycle of violence. That's how Denis Villeneuve described it. Is that the film is Nawal saying, to her children, basically, like, there has been so much violence in this family that it needs to end, and it will end if number one, if you know everything, number two, if you find it out on your own, number three, if you confront I guess the central the integral part of the violence within the family.
Yeah,
The piece
the thing that all the threads lead to.
in this instance, right? Because in a sense, not really, because I agree. Obviously, he is the integral piece of the violence of this life, or of these lives. But really,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the war in general. The Civil War is what tore them apart in the first place. Violence separated them. This war separated them,
Mm-hmm.
and while one chose to fight against, her, what would be her people, right? Which is, um, fighting against the Christians, because she saw them as, they are, exterminating the Muslim refugees. But it's
Mm-hmm.
because she fell in love with the Muslim refugees, and she wanted to have a life with this man, and that was taken away from her from Christian nationalists, and so obviously she decided to go that route.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once she's separated from her child, and this, you see what this civil war has done to this person. That he has been radicalized, brainwashed, controlled, manipulated, and made into this killing machine, this monster, this torturer, for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was with the Muslim refugees in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So says the warlord. But then was manipulated, corrupted, and brainwashed by the Christian nationalists um, once he was captured by them. Right now, not
Yeah.
to say that you I make the argument that he was manipulated and brainwashed and corrupted, but perhaps he just, he just decided if they're not going to kill me and they're just going to let me work for them, then I'll just work for them. Like, it's which seems sort of strange if he were to have done that. I don't think they really specify.
Not that I
Because I'm trying to remember what the Lord had said. There's no way I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, by the way, so that's why I'm doing in the Warlord. But he does make it seem like he was captured and just turned. Probably through threat of being killed himself if he didn't conform, right?
Well, and not to play devil's advocate, but the Warlord does mention that Nihan almost sort of had a penchant for violence,
right.
That he was, if I'm being honest, he almost made it sound like it didn't take much to re-radicalize him for the Christian nationalists.
Yeah, you're right, because again, that's all he's known is violence and war and killing and radicalization. That's all he's ever known. So yeah, it makes perfect sense that it doesn't take much. And then juxtaposed to that, you have Nawal, who again joins the Muslim refugees and works for them to try to eliminate threats within the political party of the Christian Nationalists, which, again, I was a little shocked by that she became their assassin. And I was pleasantly surprised of how the movie treats it, because I liked that they don't. She's not weak. I like that they don't. She's not. She's a strong character. She doesn't hesitate. So by that I mean, like, in the scene where she actually does kill that political figure, okay? There's no hesitation. Like, she draws the gun, she racks it, she shoots him twice. And I feel like another filmmaker would have probably had her hesitate or sort of take a second. But no, because again, she sees these Christian nationalists as radicalized threats, and they're dangerous, right? Because even before this, we get the bus scene, right?
Holy Jesus.
And so one of the most tense scenes in the film, which is not even that long, the tension feels so palpable and so long, but really it's not. It's a very short amount of time that we're sitting with all of this, with this action. But I appreciated that she is intelligent. I appreciated that Nawal knows how to get where she needs to be by taking her necklace off, by wrapping her head, right? He knows that bus is, full of Muslim refugees. If they see that she is wearing a cross and her head's not covered, her cover's blown, and she won't get on the bus.
Yeah.
But then again, when it's time to use it, she immediately pulls the necklace out, says that she is Christian, which she is. And man, when she tried to save that little girl, I mean, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's almost as tough as the reveal at the end. It's just a gut punch.
Yeah, it's almost like the daughter, and maybe just because this is on my mind because I've been replaying the game and the new season's on, but like a little bit of The Last of Us, almost like she oh shit, what's the projects Nihan on this little girl and think, almost like if I can save this little girl, then there's hope for my son.
Yeah, I could see that.
Is how I kind of took it. And also probably more like I'm not going to let this little girl die. Her mom isn't going to make it out alive, but
No.
this little girl could still live.
Yeah, she's just trying to say what I love about Noelle is that she's not a violent person necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she has committed acts of violence, but overall, she just wants the war to be over, and she wants to find her son, and she wants to live a normal life. It's why she started as a journalist. It's why, she's trying to save that little girl. She knows that you're right. This woman's not going to make it. They're going to kill this woman no matter what I do. But if I try to save this little girl, I can save at least one person. And unfortunately, that girl was just too traumatized, too shocked by the moment, and probably confused and so scared.
Yeah.
That and Jesus, them just shooting that little girl just outright. It's hard to watch. It's devastating. And yeah, I think that's really where that's when Nawal decides, that yes, she was already sort of upset with the Christian nationalists because of this because of they murdered that man that she loved. Boyfriend, husband, not sure.
I think it was just boyfriend. I think they were trying to run away to get married.
Right.
But her brothers tracked him down first.
And yeah. So, but after this, after they kill all those people and light that bus on fire, she's for sure. She feels that she needs to do something about this. And I love that when Jean goes to this country and she's trying to follow these breadcrumbs and she's talking to all of these people. I love the narrative structure of this. I love that this is where we're getting our information. We are learning when she is learning. However, we get all the information in flashback where she gets information that she is hearing just from these people's testimonies. For instance, when Nawal is giving birth in prison, she hears she gave birth in prison. We see she gives birth to twins in prison. And that's when we start to be a little one step ahead of everybody, which of course is on purpose. It's not a flaw in the storytelling. It builds the tension that we're one step ahead. Because once we realize that she's mistaken, we're like, wait.
Yeah.
No. No. He wasn't born in prison. You guys were. And when I tell you that her gasp, sent shivers down my spine. Her gasp said everything.
Yeah.
When Simone, cryptically tells her that they're looking for the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I had to rewind it because even though I was paying attention, when she gasps, I was like, wait, I missed something. And I was like, no, I saw it all. That's when it kind of really sunk in. I was like, oh.
But again, what they're doing here is brilliant because I know we're jumping through a lot of stuff and I apologize. But, during that scene of Simone telling Jean about, what he had just heard from the warlord, and using math because she is a mathematician. That 1 + 1 is 2, but is it possible for it to be 1? Technically, yes, because in the beginning of the film, when she is the assistant to that professor, they're discussing this very complex mathematic, theories and all of that. And within those complicated mathematic theories, there, to my understanding, I think I read this somewhere a year ago, that 1 + 1 is 1, and one of the, whatever. It's so over my head I can't explain it correctly, but it's sort of to give you a little foreshadowing in the beginning of the film.
Okay.
That
man,
isn't what it seems. And yeah, man, again, what the film does brilliantly in that scene is, even after we have that sort of reveal and it's sort of confirmed, what we kind of assume up until that point, they're just going to tell you that, Nihan changed his name when he went into the prison. It was this person, and we're like, oh shit, we know that name. That name is he's the man who tortured, Nawal.
mm-hmm.
And then your whole world collapses.
Yeah, and then they give us the flashback of how she learned this.
Yeah,
dude, utterly devastating. And I think what's even more devastating that we haven't really spoke on is before he's radicalized by the Christian nationalists, when he's with that warlord, he's looking for Narwhal.
Yeah.
He even tells the warlord, I want to become a martyr, like have my face plastered everywhere, then she can find me.
Right.
And the warlord's like, no. I don't know if it was, pride, I don't want to get rid of my best sniper, or if he just thought maybe it was too impossible that his mom's going to find him, But I think for me, that was what was the most so devastating, is learning that he was also trying to find her.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, just like her, he didn't have a lot of information to go on.
No.
And I think that's why, again, the letter scene is so much more devastating than, it is devastating.
Yeah.
But especially when he reads the letter addressed to the son.
Yeah.
Oh, holy Jesus. Oh.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way that, Nawal sort of compartmentalized this. That, she's able to separate the two from, her captor, her rapist, her torturer, and then her son, whom she looked for forever and never found. Until, she realized that she had, and he had. And unfortunately, because of this horrible situation they're in, because of this war-torn country that they lived in, and the civil and political unrest, that it forced this incredible act of violence, that they did find each other under the worst circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devastating. You're right. It is like a Greek tragedy. And I think that's, obviously that's not Villeneuve. That's the playwright.
Yeah. Yeah, because I did read that the play is considered a tragedy.
Right. Rightfully so. But yeah, I remember, seeing it. Again, like it's indescribable. The feeling once it's revealed of who they're looking for and what's going on.
Yeah. Now, I have a question.
Mhm.
Obviously, Nihan's life is now forever changed.
Right.
Knowing as the torturer, he's now father to these two twins who just tracked him down. And clearly, they kind of don't want to have anything to do with him. But then he just learned from a son's perspective, he did find his mom and did something horrific to her.
Right.
Obviously, his life has changed forever.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder kind of where he goes from there, because obviously, and I'm glad the film doesn't, it doesn't really tell us where he goes from there. We just know that Simone and Janine, kind of, they're going to be okay,
I mean,
implied by the
yeah, in a way, I think.
yeah,
Um,
implied by that last letter their mom wrote to them.
right.
That in doing this, they've broken the cycle of anger, and that they're going to be okay now. I mean, obviously, Simon now understands his mother more because it seemed like they had a tumultuous relationship. But it just makes me wonder about Nihan. I don't know. Like, I kind of want to know what we're meant to think where he goes from here.
I don't know. It's interesting because obviously it's left to your interpretation, or it's
Yeah.
not meant to be answered at all. Either way. I mean, obviously he's confronted with a lot all at once. He's confronted with the sins of his past and of the atrocities he committed during war.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. He learns that his mother is dead, so he'll never be able to find her. He also learns that he unknowingly reconnected with her and then tortured and raped her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's learning all of this all at the same time. So he's not that sympathetic. He is in the sense of the son. The son is
Right.
sympathetic. I feel horrible for the son who
Mm-hmm.
never got to reconnect with his mother, knowingly anyway, and that he was put in such a horrible circumstance in his life that he ended up being who he is.
Right.
But of course, the torturer is obviously not a sympathetic character, and I like that. We have this duality, and we have this split in one person, and that,
Mm-hmm.
and especially that Nawal is able to recognize that and be able to see that and be able to make her peace with both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is, God, man, I mean, just thinking about it, it's just devastating how when he reads both letters, and because they're, it's still just amazing that they're both to him.
Yeah. And here's what's fascinating that I didn't just realize it, but the notary kind of knew all of this.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't know, of course, the person, but he wrote both those letters for her,
Right.
since she couldn't do it herself. So he knew that they were looking for the same person.
Yeah.
But I get it. He was trying to honor a woman he considered family.
Right.
So I'm going to keep her secrets. You guys will find this out. And then I will, oh no, what? I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I did like that they didn't really play it like that. Like, he didn't pretend. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
that you're, yeah, he's like, you're right. That's who it is. Let's go find him. And, in a way, it's it's purposefully misleading to them because
Mm-hmm.
she wants to, again, end the cycle of anger and violence. To do so, they need to know the whole story. And to know the whole story, they need to travel to where she's from, to where they're from, and learn the history of their mother so they have a full understanding of the anger and violence that could potentially follow them and loom over them forever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree that it is intentionally misleading for
Yeah.
him because yes, he knows everything. Um, he
Well, that
he might even know who the guy is.
well, and that kind of explains why he's so eager when Simon comes to him for help. And he's like, "Yeah, like we're going." And Simon's like, "What do you mean we?"
Yeah.
Because I think he kind of knew, like, well, I want to help you find this guy too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, he finds that this relationship he has with Nawal is sacred. He says it several times that like what I promised her and what she means to me is everything to me. And in that if she asked if she asked them to find it out on their own, they're going to find it out on their own. I'm not going to do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it all matters. It all needs to play out like this for them to have that understanding and for them to have this complete story of their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And to truly understand her view of how she wants their lives moving forward. She wants their lives to be free of all mystery, of all anger, of all resentment. And she felt that this was the best way to do it. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this movie is absolutely incredible. I will probably see it again.
Yeah.
I'll definitely watch it again because it's a powerful movie, man. Wasn't expecting it at all.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, at this point, I don't know why I'm still shocked on how good Denis films are. Every film of his we've talked about on the show, from Prisoners to Sicario to Blade Runner. Eventually, yes, we'll do Dune. I mean, we're probably going to need 2 weeks to prep for that. But,
Yeah, probably.
I don't know why at this point I'm still shocked that his movies have never let me down. I I was sold from the jump, from when we unknowingly first meet Nihan, and he looks directly down the barrel of the camera.
Yeah.
And that was such a powerful image that I was like, man, let's go. I'm here for this.
Yeah. Denis. So he has an incredible casting director. Okay. The casting director, her name is Constance. She worked on The Hurt Locker. Okay. And
okay.
Before this, right? She had worked on The Hurt Locker. And she had told him, she goes, okay, I worked with these guys, I think it was in Lebanon, or maybe it was Lebanon, no, in Jordan, because I think they shot it in Jordan. She goes, I worked with these guys for The Hurt Locker. They're Iraq and Iranian refugees. They live there. And they're amazing. They'll do anything. They're not professional actors, but they work hard. They'll be there. They're not very expensive, and they'll do a great job. And so he used them. So the people like in the bus, the soldiers, some extras. Like they're all these Iraq and Iranian refugees who have lived this life before. A lot of them said that when they just hearing the tanks going down the street, gave them pause because it was so it had been so soon. By the way, we're talking like 6 months for some of them since they were in like the war in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And so they had lived this life before, and so they were perfect for it. And he at first he was worried about it, saying that they were just there, they had just lived this, they've already experienced this. I'm sure it was really traumatic, and they don't want to do it again. And he said it was the opposite. Like they wanted to, because they wanted to show the authenticity and the realness of it all. And I think it does bring that authenticity to this movie. And again, to tell you that a lot of, in us too, probably, when we first see this movie, we want to define it by its ending, right? Its shocking twist. But really, that's not what the movie is. The twist is it's almost a metaphor for the violence and in war, and all that it corrupts, right? It's like, if it weren't for this setting and the narrative and the plot and the story, all of that, if it weren't for any of that, I think this twist would seem sort of schlocky and hokey, and sort of like, what an incredible coincidence.
Yeah.
That has no logical sense. But to put it in this setting, and to have it be this sort of metaphor or allegory for war, violence, and anger, and how it affects everyone that it surrounds, I think it's perfect, and it works. And I still don't know how they pulled it off. My second time watching it, I was still just shocked. I was, and not once did I ever go, I don't believe you. You know? Not once did I think that, oh, that doesn't make sense, or, oh,
Yeah.
that's a leap. Never once. It works. It's perfect, and I don't know how they did it. And ever since I saw it a year ago, I think about it every once in a while. It's one of those movies that sticks with you, and I think it is, obviously, it's because of how it ends.
Agreed. Yeah, I fully agree that it is. It's so. Yeah, you said that so eloquently, dude. I can't. There's nothing I can add to that, because I agree. Like I said at the top of the show, this is such a grounded movie. That the twist, it's really not really a twist. It's just the reveal.
Yeah.
Isn't too fantastical. Now, if this was something like, that had a fantastical element to it, like Predestination, for example, then okay, maybe I'd be like, okay, well, time travel doesn't fit into this story, but this doesn't have any of these fantastical elements. It's just a grounded human story, and it's very devastating. When I was talking about it at work today, I was telling everyone, I was like, it's a rough watch. It's a great watch, but it's a rough watch. And then I was like, and I've seen Irreversible, and everyone was like, what's Irreversible? And I'm like,
oh no,
oh.
It's can of worms.
I'm like, well, another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I agree with everything you just said. Well, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. I'm glad we got to do this. I honestly, I was expecting a phone call when you finished. I'm like, he's gonna call me because he's just not gonna.
I was really excited. I was going to text you, but I started the movie so late, and then I had to keep pausing to finish up the chores, and then just by the time I was done, I was like, yeah, he's probably already asleep. I'll text him in the morning.
Absolutely, I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, he's gonna text because or call or something because I didn't have anybody. So I was like, I have to tell someone to watch it so I can talk to someone about it because I'm gonna lose my mind. Like
Yeah.
I have something that's so interesting that I have to give it to someone else.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was kind of telling Ashley about it. I'll do that for certain movies that we do for the show. I'll just kind of bounce it off of her. I know she doesn't care that much, but I know she'll at least be like, "Huh," or "Well, that's interesting." But yeah, just for that same reason, just to kind of like bounce it off of her. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed the movie. I definitely want to buy it physically. I didn't have the chance to buy it physically, um, but I definitely want to get it physically because yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I really really enjoyed it. Um, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to hear what we're going to talk about next week?
Yeah.
I think you're going to be real excited because I'm really excited. And I kind of fibbed a little bit to you, dude.
Okay.
So in picking this episode, as I mentioned off mic, I needed an English speaking film because I think we've done we did Double Indemnity and we did The Assassination of Justin James, but with how many foreign language films I have on my list alone, we kind of need to break it up a little bit.
Sure.
But this movie is a silent film. So I kind of lied. But the version we're doing, technically, this is probably going to give away, has narration to it.
Cool.
So next week, buddy, specifically, we're doing the 1942 version because that's the way it was, the definitive edition of Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush.
Cool.
I mean, I might watch the 1925 version, but I even specifically pulled up Criterion, and they said that the 42 is his definitive version of The Gold Rush.
Yes, he liked that one more because he felt that it needed a little more explanation, and it's more, and it breaks up like the cards. Like it was he and Buster Keaton. They hated dialogue cards. They didn't like. It's like it breaks up the story too much. Less cards, the better. Like if we can just get through with it in pantomime, I think that's a lot better. And so yeah, obviously Chaplin. He went back for this one and re-edited the footage for narration and less cards. Buster Keaton would just not do cards. he would do as little of them as humanly possible.
I didn't ask you when I did my solo episode on Limelight, but would you say that would be the difference between Chaplin and Keaton? That where Chaplin would be like, I don't like it, I'll do it anyway, I'll fix it later if I need to, as where Keaton was like, I'm not doing it, I'm doing it my way.
Well, Chaplin loved the storytelling aspect of it. Not that Keaton didn't. Keaton loved the performing aspect of it more. And, a lot of it had to do with just his, him growing up in vaudeville, him doing all of these acrobatic stunts with his parents forever and ever. I mean, he did it until, he was like 20. And then once he discovered silent films with Fatty Arbuckle, Then he goes, "Oh, okay, so it's the same thing, just on film, and there's just no talk. That's fine." And he felt that the visual aspect of the story was more important than anything. Chaplin, he's trying to tell, like in City Lights, he's trying to tell a romance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can, I guess, without dialogue, but it's not. It's more complicated. So, for you to understand the story, and for you to get the story, and for you to care about these characters, yeah, you're gonna need cards.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is the first time I picked a silent film.
Yeah.
Have I? We're gonna say yes. Because I mean, you did the Phantom Carriage.
Yeah.
You made me sit through that fucking Dr. Mabuse
Oh yeah.
film and Spies.
Yeah, I've done a lot of silent films too. Because Metropolis is probably the best one so far.
Did you pick Metropolis or did I pick
I'm
Metropolis?
Positive.
I guess technically I did pick A Trip to the Moon, but we needed to watch that for context for Hugo. So, but yeah, man, I'm excited. I had this appreciation for Chaplin. Of course, I talked about it when we did our episode over Chaplin with Robert Downey Jr. But I feel like I now have this love of him, getting to purchase the Criterion films and, watching The Great Dictator, which for sure will be a future episode. Not this season because I've already seen it.
Yeah.
But then, of course, Limelight, wonderful film. The Kid, utterly devastating. Yeah. So I'm excited to see Gold Rush. And I also wanted to pick something a little bit more lighthearted, and thank God the Fates landed on that. Yeah, because I know it's a comedy, so I'm looking forward to having a little light episode after.
Yeah, and not only is it comedy that's lighthearted, but it's also visually interesting. Chaplin was doing some really cool, innovative tricks visually with this movie. So once you see it, you're like, I don't know how he did that, and then you'll find out, or I'll explain it to you.
Well, and I know when we did Chaplin, we did talk about that they showed a little bit of how he filmed, specifically some of the Gold Rush.
Oh yeah, they did
parts. Yeah. But of course, the Chaplin film focuses more on his relationships than still a great movie.
It is,
but
yeah,
not a definitive biopic.
No,
but
Downey Jr. gives a great performance, and Rick Attenborough, you can tell he loves Chaplin. So
yeah.
If you want to go back and listen to it, I don't remember what season that was, how many years ago that was.
Dude, I think that was like season 1, man. I think that obviously that was right when we. No, that had to have been at least 2. Okay. Because I don't know. Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to it. It was called Charlie and the Tramp, I believe.
That's right.
There we go. Yeah, you should be able to find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm glad you're going to be excited. I knew you were
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Incendies, and we will see you next week for the Gold Rush.